Hello everyone, I'm Sneaky Teak, and this is Storybook Brawl 101 Foundations, intended to be video 1 in a 4-part series of videos that I like to call primers, dedicated to helping people enjoy playing and watching the game. Some quick context and then a bit more explanation of exactly what it is that we're doing here today. Once, when I was streaming Storybook Brawl in the not-too-distant past, a core viewer who has been there almost every single day on my Twitch stream watching me play said this: "Teak, I love watching the ovals clash together. It's entrancing, but I still have no idea what's going on in the game." Now, Storybook Brawl is an interesting beast compared to a lot of the other games that I play. I've tended in the past to play single-player games with no timer, no major time pressure, which provides me all the time in the world to explain my decisions, to expand upon game constructs and mechanics, and to answer questions. Makes it easier for people to follow along and enjoy the game. But Storybook Brawl is a competitive multiplayer game with an enforced time limit, and that means that I have to act much faster. I really want viewers like that and players to have a better basis to enjoy playing and watching this game, and so that's what these kinds of primer series are about. This first video, again, is Storybook Brawl 101 Foundations. I'm going to establish the core mechanics and rules that define the game. The next video is 201 Elements, where I kind of expand out to the heroes and the characters and start to build some of those more abstract concepts, right? Who are the actual players in the game? And then there's 301 Combinations, which takes those rules and mechanics and the major keywords, characters, and heroes and smashes them together to give you an idea of what some of the core strategies are that players like I may be pursuing, like me. Players like me. Me pursue, I pursue. I think that one's an I. I'm not, you'd think that English first language you would know for sure, right? And then finally, the 401 video is probably going to be called something like Storybook Brawl 401 Joy Percent. And it's all about understanding why. Why do I play? And why should you enjoy watching? It's one thing to be described mechanically, and entirely another to be described in terms of that core essence of joy. Why do we play games? We play games to enjoy them. What's fun about playing and watching Storybook Brawl? That context aside, a couple more quick notes, all right? I know that there will be players coming into the YouTube videos like this one looking to become excellent at the game, okay, seeking advanced tips. This is not the guide for that. These videos are not intended to help you hit Mythic or to win any upcoming tournaments. They are for new players and viewers to enjoy the game. That being said, you'll never know what you might glean from having someone else explain the game, so there may still be content here for more advanced players and viewers. But be warned, in these videos you may notice that I make some statements which are not complete or a little bit imprecise. Here's a good example. I may say that heroes start with 40 health, and you may know that there's one hero who starts with more than that. Okay, so this is intentional. I think that oftentimes it's very tempting to kind of show off how much game knowledge we are, how much game knowledge we have by emphasizing some of those exceptions. But I think that it undermines the learning process, right? It's best to establish the rules and then discover the exceptions, lest we undermine that core process of learning and lest we undermine establishment of core premises, right? So I'm going to focus on the normal case, but if you notice any of those exceptions, take note of them, use it to expand upon your own learning, and feel free, to leave a comment down below to say, hey, check it out. I know this one exception, all right? That's totally cool by me. All right, whew, there you go. Sneaky Teak, Storybook Brawl 101 Foundations, and this is Storybook Brawl. Let me quickly read Storybook Brawl's description in the Steam page to kind of ground the process from here, and then we'll dive into a bot match in order to demonstrate some of those mechanics in play. So, Storybook Brawl is described by Good Luck Games, that's the developer and publisher, as this. Says, draft your favorite characters from story and myth in this 8-player card battler. Over 30 different heroes to command. Will you side with the evil vampire, Snow White? Or team up with the good Princess Peep and her battle-hardened sheep. Deep strategy meets enchanting fun in Storybook Brawl. Mostly flavor, but I actually think that there are two things here which are really important to note. Thing one, a basic genre description. It says this is an 8-player card battler, okay? So we've got some card drafting and battling mechanics, a la Slay the Spire, okay? A la deck builder roguelites. And that 8-player format like an auto chess game. And I would describe this as an auto chess game. And then one other thing, which I think is a big deal, how is the game themed? You know, for a lot of players and viewers, getting some sense of the theming can help you bootstrap understanding of the game. So it's called Storybook Brawl. And most of the characters and heroes have their root in some popular story or fable or myth. And the more that you watch, the more that you'll start to pick those things out. And it really can help you understand some basics of what's happening in the game. Okay, so we've established what it is, and we know the basic description, but from here, I think that the easiest thing to do is to dive into an actual game. And once we're in the game, I can break down the two major phases of the game, Shop and Brawl, come back to that, and all of those core mechanics and rules. So let's dive in. Not going to spend a lot of time talking about this screen. It's going to come up a lot more in 201, okay? 201 Elements, where I'll talk about all of the heroes and how I like to bucket them. But just know that this screen is actually really important. I've said that Storybook Brawl has two major phases, Shop and Brawl, but there is one screen before those, and it's this. At the beginning of every Brawl, whether against bots or human players, you are offered a selection of 4 heroes to choose from. The hero in position 1 is chosen from one of 8 free heroes. Every player has access to those heroes. And then 2 through 4 are chosen from the premium heroes, the paid heroes. And it's kind of a cool system. 2 is always available to you even if you haven't unlocked it, whereas 3 and 4 may be locked if you've not yet acquired them. For the sake of simplicity, I'm going to pick the hero here in position 1, Geppetto. And here's why. In general, the free heroes have simpler effects and abilities than the premium heroes. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are weaker or stronger, but just that they have a more well-defined and simple effect on the game and on the board. But note that we have 4 heroes to choose from here. Each of them will have a different ability that's present throughout the game. It's kind of like a power that you have, and that ability may dramatically alter the way that you want to play the game and your trajectory throughout the game. Not all heroes are of equal power level. I think some heroes are stronger than others, and the play styles may differ quite a lot. Here's looking to you, Peter Pants. And so this screen is really important, and we'll come back to it later, but for now, let's select Geppetto. Cool, and it says round 1. And as the game begins, there are all these things on the screen. But rest assured, we're going to break them all down because really, there's not that much going on in Storybook Brawl once someone slows down and breaks it down for you. There are 2 main phases in Storybook Brawl. Phase number 1 is the shop phase. That's what we're in right now. During the shop phase, you, the player, provide inputs. I get to make choices. I get to spend money. I get to acquire characters. I get to reposition my army. And I get to prepare for phase 2, which is the brawl phase. During phase 2, you just watch the fireworks fly. This is an auto-battler game, and when you actually clash against opposing players, there is no input for you to provide. You simply see the fruits of your labor. In the shop phase, I think that it's easy to understand the screen as 3 or 4 major areas, okay? We've got our hero sector. That's here in the bottom right, where we can see our hero, our experience, and our health. I'll be right back to that. Then the top. This is the economic or shop sector. We get to see our money, we get to see options for the shop like re-rolling, get to see characters and spells. I'll be right back to that too. And then we have sector 3, which is the battle sector, okay? So we can see our board where we will position units, our bench where we have reinforcements that we may be accruing over time, and our treasures, which are kind of like an additional hero power, okay? And then finally, you can see the opposing players on the left side. And this is why I say 3 or 4, because this is kind of meta information. Does it play into the battle? Does it play into the hero? But it is very important. Here on the far left side of the screen, you can see all the other players and learn some information about them, like their health and their level. Okay, let's break them down a little further. Back to the bottom left, to our hero. So we see a little portrait with an avatar, and if we hover over it, we get this pop-out card, which tells us our hero's name and our hero's special ability. So in this case, it says, Geppetto. When you summon a character during a brawl, give it +3/+3. Okay, so our hero power is that any summoned units get powered up. That gives us some information about what we can do that's strong, and it might guide some of our buys, some of our purchases, some of our decisions in the shop. There's 2 more pieces of information. At the top right of our hero portrait is a little green circle with a number inside. That's our level. In this game, you begin at level 2, and as you acquire experience, you'll level up to a cap of level 6. Level plays an important role in the game. Your level determines the maximum quality of units and spells that you can acquire. And we'll come right back to that. We're about to talk about characters and spells. By default, we get 1 experience in every brawl, and it takes 3 experience to level up. So 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 5, 1, 2, and 6. Turn 13, you'll hit max level. That's by default. And, you know, future videos exist. We'll talk about this stuff. And then the bottom right is a pretty simple thing. Okay, we see in a little heart that number right now, it's 40. Heroes by default start with 40 health. When you win a brawl, as in you defeat all the opponent's characters and you have characters left standing, you deal damage to the opposing player. When you tie a brawl, neither player takes damage. And when you lose a brawl, having all of your characters defeated and leaving opposing characters standing, you take health damage. This goes back to the game description. This is an 8-player multiplayer competitive game, and it's a last player standing format. First player who's knocked out takes 8th, and then 7th, 6th, 5th, 4th, all the way back to the crown victor, number 1, the player who never died. Okay, there you go. That's the hero. Hero, level, health. Now let's talk about shop. Okay, let's talk about the economic sector, as we called it previously. So fancy, Tiki. The economic sector. Thing number 1 that should pop out at you right at the top are 2 little coin icons. Says 2 of 2 gold. In the game, it says gain 1 max gold each turn up to 12. Unspent gold isn't saved. On turn 1, we have 2 gold. And then at the end of the game, we'll get up to 12 gold. And we can spend up to all of our gold every single round to acquire characters and spells. Sorry, the mouse over here is going to be, I'm trying not to mislead. I'm making like a little boat. There's 3 characters here and 1 spell. Okay, let's talk about characters and spells, and then we'll talk about the meta mechanics of the shop. So here on turn 1, we get to see 3 characters in the shop, and this number will go up over time. Every character in our shop has a little number 2 with the coin on the top left. Okay, by default, characters' cost is equal to their level. And what did we say about level? The highest level character you can see is equal to your hero level. We're level 2. The highest level character we can see is level 2, and the 2 level characters cost us 2 gold. There are no purchasable level 1 characters. Level 1 tokens exist in the game, but you cannot buy a level 1 character. So you start at level 2 and you buy level 2 characters. Later in the game, we'll see those higher level characters, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And characters have some important information about them. Some of it we'll come back to later. You can see their cost and their level. You can see some information about their alignment. The border tells you something here because there's good, neutral, and evil characters. More on that in 201. And then you can see their stat line, their basic stat line. The yellow number in the left is their attack. That's how much damage they do when they attack an opposing unit or defend. And the number on the right is their health. Whenever a unit is attacked or takes damage on defense, or rather on their own attack, this number ticks down. Whenever it hits 0, they perish. They no longer exist on your board. So we can see that there is a 3-blind mouse here with 2 attack and 2 health, and a Fanny with 2 attack and 2 health, and a happy little tree with 1 attack and 1 health. And so you may be asking, how do you decide what to buy when all the stat lines are so similar? That's going to be more in the 201, but just know, just like the hero, you can mouse over the characters and see more information about them. There's more than just the stat line. Most characters also have some special ability. Maybe something to do with economy, maybe something to do with supporting other units, maybe they have some meta scaling that they have. But the characters will be, in general, more than their apparent stat line. And then in the shop, there is a single spell. So when I first started playing this game, I actually got these things confused some, but the quick differentiator is characters have stats on the bottom and spells do not. Shops have 1 spell by default, and it's always on the far right side. Over here. And also the iconography might help you too. Characters tend to be animal-esque, human-esque, whereas the spells tend to be more like an icon or a scene. And so we can see that there's a 0-cost spell here, Shard of the Ice Queen, that does something interesting. If we ever decide that we don't like any of these characters or spells, or we're hunting for a specific thing, there's a couple key shop functions we can use. We can spend one of our gold to roll a new shop, which gets me to a pretty core shop mechanic. Shops are random. This is a random storefront. Every turn you see a random selection of characters pulled from a universal pool of characters based on your level. If we re-roll, we will see new characters and new spells, also based on our level. There are more mechanics there, but those will come out in later videos. For now, just know that it's a random storefront. And I should note one last thing about spells. Sorry for backtracking here a little bit. While characters' cost is determined based on their level, spells are not. Spells do have level limits. There are level 3 spells and 4 spells that we can't see yet, but the cost tends to be distributed more fully. Shard of the Ice Queen is a level 2 spell that costs 0 gold. That's a goose egg. And so there's a bit more variation there among the spells. For the sake of simplicity, this turn I'm going to buy a happy little tree so that we can see a character purchase, and I'm going to cast Shard of the Ice Queen on it, which will transform it into some new form. And that will help us segue really nicely into the battle sector, our board, our bench, and our treasures. So we can buy by clicking on this character and pulling it either into the board or bench, placing it anywhere, and we can freely move this character later. Our choices here are not permanent. And we can see when we did that, our gold went down to 0. So we can no longer make any costly purchases on this turn. That being said, even if this character eventually expires in their utility, we can sell them back for 1 gold. And so there is some amount of refund in this game, and it's actually a pretty major mechanic to play around that we'll talk about more in the 301 combinations. And then this is a targeted spell, Shard of the Ice Queen, and so we'll target that at Happy Little Tree, and boom! Now we've got a 2/2 Black Cat, and this is actually a huge hit for us as Geppetto, which we'll understand soon enough. We no longer have any money, but we have a character on the board. So let's talk about the board and the bench a little bit. When I'm playing this game, I like to use numbered positions on the board because it makes it a little easier to follow. And so top left here, I call position 1, and then 2, 3, 4, moving left to right. Back down to 5 in the bottom left, 6, 7. And this is important because battle order is deterministic in this game. At the beginning of every battle or brawl, you flip a coin. Randomly, you will either be the attacker or the defender to begin the brawl. Right? 50% of the time you are on the attack and 50% of the time on the defense. Let's say that we get heads and we're the attacker. That means that first we would have one of our units in position 1 attack a random frontline opponent character. And then the opponent's position 1 will attack back. And then it will proceed to position 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. There's some obvious gaps there that you might notice right away. What does it do if it's supposed to attack in position 2 and you don't have a unit there? Well, it just skips to position 3. It won't deny you an attack because of a deficit on the board. What happens if a unit resummons? That can change the ordering. You can have position 1 attack twice. if a unit dies and then is replaced in position 1. Okay, so there's some more mechanics. There's some summoning things. There's all sorts of weird stuff that can happen. But in general, that's how the battle proceeds. Someone's on the attack, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, and then wrapping down to the bottom. And in combinations, we'll talk about how that might affect our unit placement, how we might choose a unit placement based on knowing how attack order resolves. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and leave Black Cat in position 1 and talk about the bench. So the units who are on your board go to the battle, they go to the brawl, and they fight. Units on your bench don't play a role in battle. They're effectively these kind of reinforcements. And so you may think, well, then what is their purpose? What do they do? Again, we'll talk about this more in 301, but there are a bunch of reasons to hold units on your bench. You might be keeping them for economy. You just want to be able to sell them for a gold or 2 later on. Units are worth 1 gold for sell, universally with one major exception. You get 1 gold back. You might be keeping them because of some other power that you have, or as an investment. You know, maybe they'll go on your board later when you pick up some other pieces that you're missing. And then finally, the third really big reason why you might be keeping units on your board is for treasures. Okay, let's talk about treasures. Treasures and upgrades. This set of kind of little windows represents the 3 places where we might have up to 3 treasures, which are kind of like extended hero abilities. Treasures give you some other power, like a hero power, which benefits you economically or statistically something. And if you mouse over this in the game, it says triple a character or complete a quest to find powerful treasures. This is one of the most core mechanics of the drafting game in Storybook Brawl. If you get 3 copies of the same character, they fuse into an upgraded form of the character, which has double the stats and double the ability, generally. And when they make that upgraded character, you will also be awarded a treasure based on the level of the character you upgrade. There are level 2 through 7 treasures in this game, which you can acquire through various means and mechanisms. And they tend to be a really big part of the game. They tend to be really powerful. So hunting out treasures is something that we're always going to be thinking about as we play the game. I'm going to seek in this video to make a treasure at some point so you can see that, because a treasure is a draft, just like heroes. All right, so we've got our hero with our health and our experience. We've got our shop with our gold and our characters and our spells. You can actually see that we cast the spell here. By default, you can only cast 1 spell per turn, so we can see the spell that we cast. We've got our battle sector with our board, our bench, and our treasures. And then finally, as we said right in the very beginning, we can see a representation of the 8 players in the lobby. And you can see all of their avatars, so you can quickly see what heroes you're playing against. You can see a number here, it's 40. This represents their health. Everybody started at 40, and as players lose battles, these numbers will change. If you mouse over, you can see more detailed information. You can see the name of the hero, you can see the hero power, and you can see their current level, which might be important. You might need to know what level the rest of the lobby is at. And then finally, a little simple and easy to miss detail. One of these 8 players will have a little gold border underneath their name, or rather underneath their icon. That's the player who you are battling in the next brawl. So your opponents are chosen semi-randomly. Obviously, we cannot play against ourselves. And so of the other 7 characters, it's chosen semi-randomly with just a couple simple rules. Can't fight the same player back-to-back, and you can't fight the same ghost, a dead player, back-to-back. You can't fight ghosts at all back-to-back, as far as I remember. So we know we're up against Horde Dragon here. We've gotten our Black Cat. We know how battle order resolves. Coin flip to see who goes first, and then position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's go to battle and see it play out. Boom. And so we won the coin flip there. You got to see that we attacked first. And because the opponent had a 1-1 on the board, we defeated them basically instantly. A great turn for us, a really great turn for us, and actually a great looking shop. So what's changed? Well, we're on 40 health, but because we defeated that Horde Dragon, they took some damage. They're on 37. Let's talk about that a little bit. How is damage calculated? The winning player does damage to the opposing player based on the characters left on your board and your level. For every unupgraded character left on your board at the end of a fight, regardless of its level, you do 1 damage. For every upgraded character, and remember, you get upgraded characters by tripling the same character or another mechanic called quest. For every upgraded character left, you deal 3 damage. And you deal additional damage equal to your level. Starting level 2, we do that 2 damage. So at the end of that fight, we had a black cat left, and we were level 2, meaning we did 3 damage to Horde Dragon, which you can see now. When this player gets to 0 health, they are knocked out, and that's the end of their round, and their position, their placement, is based on when they were knocked out. If they were the first knocked out, they take 8th, and if they were the 6th knocked out, they take 3rd. Right. 7th, 2nd. Got it. What else do we want to talk about here? I think I'd like to strive to achieve a treasure, and to maybe show off the hero power in action, because we actually have the setup to do it. We're up against Mrs. Claus next here. She's on 40 health, so she won her battle. That tells us something. Let's go ahead and just keep it simple. I'm not going to talk much about why I'm making my purchases, but let's go ahead and shrink spell. That reduces the cost of this whole shop by 1. To demonstrate something I talked about earlier, if we buy this happy little tree, our gold goes down to 0, but we can sell it to immediately get back to 1 gold. And then I'm going to buy this black cat, and I'm going to demonstrate one other mechanic that I hadn't showed off before, which is lock. We talked about paying gold to reroll your shop to see new characters and spells, but I didn't talk about lock. Lock says, I like what's here, don't change it. By default, after you battle, after you brawl, the shop will reroll a new selection of characters and spells for free. You kind of get 1 free reroll per turn. But sometimes you might be looking at a shop and you might think, I don't want to see anything else. This is the right set of characters and spells for me. And so if you lock, what it says is, none of the remaining characters or spells will reroll. But the empty spaces will. And so it's not like we'll show up after this next brawl with just the Wizard's Familiar left. We'll get to see other characters and a new spell too. And so this tends to be a really powerful mechanic for limiting variance, right? Shops are random, so you might want to choose to take the known good rather than risk the unknown bad. Let's dive into another battle here against Mrs. Claus. We have a really strong board setup. See what happens. So they won the coin flip and they attack first with their beefy 2/6 Rainbow Unicorn. Second attack, we die and boom, the cat resummons. That's a 4/4. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. We win this battle, we have 1 cat left, and so we deal 3 damage to them. Something wild happened there. You may have noticed when I moused over this earlier, maybe you didn't, that Black Cat is kind of a special unit. It says, last breath. When I die, summon a 1/1. But what we saw was a 4/4. That's the hero power in play. Geppetto says a resummoned unit during a brawl gets +3/+3, and that's why these units were so very strong for us, right? For the sake of demonstrating treasures, I'm going to throw optimality out the door here. There's all sorts of strong things that we can do in this shop. This is actually an incredible selection that we could play around, but I'm basically going to hard roll for the rest of this game to see a 3rd black cat so I can show off that upgrade mechanic. So every time we roll, brrr, we get to see new characters and a new spell. Brrr. And since we're level 2, we're only seeing level 2 characters still. We did not hit our black cat, so I'm just going to go to battle with my 2 units. I'm going to say I'm hard committed to tripling these black cats. I'm sure it won't backfire. The opponents surely are not making stronger boards. I can't imagine how this could go wrong. A massive surprise to me, it has gone wrong. And we have lost this fight. And this time they had 2 characters left alive. And so they did 4 damage to us rather than the regular 3 that we had been seeing on previous brawls. I wonder if I'm going to get a cat. I actually don't know what the expected number of rolls is here before we get the cat. That's something I'd like to expand on in a future series, is actually mathing some of this stuff out and trying to estimate what is the cost of acquisition, right? How big is the pool? How likely are we to hit something? How much is it affected by units we've already acquired? So we're getting pretty well stomped on here. The opponent seems unenthused by our decision to not make any purchases or cast any spells, but we are nevertheless resolute in our plan to acquire this black cat, no matter what cost. The cost cannot be too great. Whatever it is, it's acceptable to us. And you can see that the opponents now have full boards, and so they're probably experiencing having to bench some characters. They've hit that 7 limit, and so now they're trying to think about, what units do I want to carry? You know, what do I want to play around? What might be a future pivot? What might be an investment? I might have to, oh, there it is! Boom, and you get to see this cool little visual effect too. This is all, by the way, I am recording all of these videos, you know, actually live in the game. So you get to experience some of the gambler's mentality that makes it fun, but that's the 401, okay? That's Storybook Brawl 401 joy %. So we'll be back to that. We get to see that there is this cool swirly VFX and like an arrow here, and it's telling us, hey, wait, something is gonna happen if you buy this unit. And so when we purchase this black cat, our 3 black cats will slap together, and we will get 1 upgraded black cat and be able to select a treasure. Get our little effect there, and boom. For treasures, the coin in the top left represents level, just like characters. These are level 2 treasures because we can bind a level 2 unit into an upgraded unit. And so we're offered a spinning wheel, a monster manual, and a ring of regeneration. Like I said, these are kind of like hero powers, right? And you can see that. They kind of sit around and they do something for you. Monster manual says when one of your monsters dies, it gets some permanent stats. And spinning wheel just gives you a little bit more gold, okay? It's like a little bit of a stimulus for your economy. And ring of regeneration gives you health back. And it is generally pretty difficult to get health back in this game. If we're not sure what we want to do, we can hide it to look at the rest of our shop, to look at other enemies, to look at our board. This is really useful. I do this a lot when I play, just to quickly reacquire some context. And we could also say skip. You know what? I don't want these treasures. I want 2 gold. No matter what the level of treasure, it's always 2 gold. If you skip the treasure, you receive 2 gold, which can often be correct, but in this case, almost assuredly we'll take a treasure. So let's just say, you know what? I spent 6 turns acquiring black cats, so I'm gonna take the ring of regeneration here because I just hope that it'll buy me 1 more round against my opponents, right? And there you go. That's the game of Storybook Brawl. We talked about the layout, the genre. We talked about hero draft briefly, and then the 3/4 major sectors of gameplay in hero, economy, battle, and opposition, I guess you could say. Opposition, I like that. I like that. Opposition, lobby. We got to demonstrate upgrading a character and acquiring a treasure, and we got to demonstrate some fight mechanics like who attacks first and how does the battle proceed. And so that's all the major content for Storybook Brawl 101 Foundations. There it was. Thanks for coming by. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope it was useful to you. If this helped slow down the game a bit and helped you understand it a little bit better, you know, feel free to leave a like or comment down below. And in closing, I have been Sneaky Teak. This has been Storybook Brawl 101 Foundations, and I hope to see you in the next video, Storybook Brawl 201 Elements. Cheers for now.